From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 530 News.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Janelle Slade. Well, some of the flames may be out, but the damage is now very real for several families south of Roundup. Fire crews still active on the fire lines tonight, but we've learned the true devastation left behind as the Bobcat fire tore through land and homes. Confirmed this afternoon, 10 homes and 13 secondary structures have been lost. Assessments are still being performed on the damage. Now, the fire, which began 7 miles southeast of Roundup, has now burned more than 30,000 acres and is 50% contained at this hour. The cooler weather has greatly reduced fire activity as firefighters work to cool hot spots and the fire's edge near those structures. Now, there is currently a total of 387 personnel assisting with the fire. The cause of the blaze that blew up and forced evacuations last Friday is still under investigation. Now, turning to Chief Forecaster Bob McGuire. Bob, fire crews are still concerned about the Bobcat fire tonight, but we're getting some cooler temperatures to help. Hopefully more.
Yeah, there's an inverse relationship between colder air and humidity. And as the cold air comes in, the humidity goes up. And with higher humidity, it makes it harder for the fires to burn. And tonight, we are expecting some really cold temperatures. In fact, possibly record cold temperatures. In Billings, we're forecasting a low of 30. The record is 31, set back in 1962. Also in Miles City, they're going to 31. Their record was 36, also set back in 1962. Livingston, 25. Their record in 1962 was 28 degrees. And one other place, let's go to Sheridan, 23. 28 is their record low back in 1929. Now, let's talk about the rest of the winter. As you'll notice here, the Old Farmer's Almanac came out with their forecast for winter, and you'll notice shows that snow time across eastern Montana, including the Billings area. But here's the good news. It's going to be overall mild across much of the region. It's just going to produce a lot of snow. We'll see average snow in the mountains and above average snow out on the plains, especially in eastern Montana. We'll have your forecast coming up in a few more minutes. Janelle?
All right, thanks, Bob. Well, a lawsuit challenging a Montana state voting law made its first appearance in Yellowstone County District Court today. Now, the suit between the Montana ACLU against the Montana Secretary of State alleges that the law suppresses Native American voters. Q2's Mitch Laggy brings us details from the courthouse tonight.
Near the end of the day Tuesday, Judge Fair's courtroom inside the Yellowstone County Courthouse was largely empty. Only 2 members of the media were there to watch the virtual trial about a Montana voter law passed in 2018. The lawsuit filed by the Montana ACLU alleges the Montana Ballot Interference Prevention Act restricts the ability of Native American people to vote. The law made it so that one person can only collect 6 ballots from other people. This restricted Native American voter advocacy groups from being able to collect as many ballots as they have in the past. The lawsuit challenges Montana Secretary of State Corey Stapleton and other Montana politicians that oversee elections. They say the law cuts down on voter fraud. Tuesday, the ACLU is asking for the law to be permanently overturned. In Billings, Mitch Laggy, MTN News.
Thanks so much, Mitch. And Mitch tells us he's scheduled to speak with attorneys tonight, so tune in tonight at 10 o'clock here on Q2 to hear more. Well, local election officials are moving forward with plans to conduct an all-male election this year, in spite of a handful of lawsuits that could potentially impact who's on the ballot and how the election is held. Well, here in Billings, the ballots are getting printed this week. Elections Administrator Brett Rutherford tells Q2 it's really too late to change.
We're geared up for mail ballot at this point. To turn over to a polling place election, you need to reorder your ballot stock because it needs to have stubs on it. And there's all these little ins and outs and statute that are very different between mail ballot and a polling place election. And then, of course, you're trying to find election judges and making sure that polling places are open if they're even available anymore.
And there's also the issue of cost. Local governments are on the hook to pay for all elections, even federal elections. Rutherford says the cost of staffing 20 or more polling places across Yellowstone County adds up quickly.
Honestly, that's another reason why I like mail ballot, because we generally save about 33% right off the top if the polls aren't open. So we do our city elections, our school elections by all mail ballot. And basically, it's a staffing situation. You have to have, 250 extra people working on one day, and you're spending $30,000-$40,000 on labor. So it adds up pretty quickly.
Earlier today, a federal appeals court rejected a last-minute effort to reinstate Green Party candidates to the Montana ballot. Montana is also among 5 states that President Trump's campaign sued last week in an attempt to stop mail-in voting. That case is still pending. Well, COVID-19 related issues claim another Montana life and add 66 new cases across the state. The latest death, a Yellowstone County woman in her 80s who lived at a local senior living facility. Her death brings our state total to 120 deaths. Tonight, there are more than 2,000 active cases across the state and 161 people in the hospital. Well, more information tonight about a body discovered in a car behind a downtown Billings hotel on Sunday morning. Yellowstone County Coroner Cliff Mahoney says 26-year-old Adrian Goodbear died from a fatal stab wound in his arm. 25-year-old Adriano Fowler is being held for the crime, but is not at this time charged with deliberate homicide. Tonight, Fowler is instead being held on a felony assault with a weapon charge as the county attorney's office works with law enforcement. Now, court documents state that Goodbear was found dead in a vehicle behind the Roadway Inn on North 27th. Police believe Goodbear drove himself to this location after he and Fowler got in a fight near the downtown Hardee's early Sunday morning. Court documents state Fowler admitted to police that he punched Goodbear in the arm while holding a glass shard from a broken liquor bottle. Remembering the fallen in Anaconda, a group of Vietnam veterans have come together to make sure Montana veterans who lost their lives in Vietnam are not forgotten. MTN's John Amy has that story tonight.
A memorial honoring those from Anaconda who served in Vietnam and those who didn't come back from the war was installed recently at Kennedy Commons Park.
When I first seen it, it brought tears to my eyes because I knew a few of these guys.
The names of 8 young men from Anaconda who died in that war are engraved on the 10-ton black marble obelisk. Veterans who survived that war remember the sacrifice of their fallen classmates.
That class of '66 took a beating, and this is a real memorial to them and that class.
You almost feel guilty that you came back and some of these people didn't. You know, it's a hard thing.
Anaconda Vietnam veteran Mickey Nazer is credited for starting this project to get the memorial built over a year ago. Through grants and donations, the Anaconda Vietnam-era Veterans Memorial Association was able to raise the $100,000 needed for the project. For the veterans of Vietnam, it's a war that stays with them.
You never come home totally. I don't know how to explain that to the normal individual, but you're just someplace you never leave.
The old veterans say they're happy that this memorial is set up here at the Kennedy Commons, a place where they used to play, like these young people, long before the war, when they were young.
These men here are us. They were young kids playing on this commons. Some came home. Why did I come home and Pat didn't, you know? But it's one of those things. It's a war. There's no pretty war, and we hope that we don't ever have to go that route again.
In Anaconda, John Amy, MTN News.
Thanks, Sean. Up next on tonight's MTN 530 News here on Q2, COVID-19 can present itself with a variety of symptoms. One of those, shortness of breath, which is also related to anxiety. In tonight's Health Watch, we learned how to tell the two apart. And in sports, Q2's Athlete of the Week is one of Montana's best ever high school kickers. Scott catches up with him.